Hi everyone, my name's Dr. Lara and I'm a vet of 15 years experience and I own and operate a mobile veterinary service. And today I want to talk about microchipping. Now before you switch off and assume that you've got everything under control, because a lot of people think that they do, stay tuned because I reckon about 30% of microchips that I scan are incorrect, and those animals are unable to find their way home if they go missing. And that's not just my opinion. There was a study done in Queensland that had very, very similar results, a statewide study that actually looked at the correct information and the information that was being held on microchips. Probably the biggest mistake that people make is that they assume that their microchip details, if they're updated with council registration and are correct, that their microchip information will be correct also, and it's just not the case. So council registration is very separate to microchip registration. The microchip registries are a separate system, and it is what anyone that is outside of your very specific little council area is going to look up if your pet goes missing. So it's really important that it gets updated. There are a number of microchip registries online. The main one is Central Animal Records. There's also Australasian Animal Records. There's also Global Micro Animal Registry and PetSafe, and another one in Queensland, I think it's called Pet Cloud. There used to be also Home Safe ID. That one's no longer around and most of their information's been transferred over to Central Animal Records. They are the privately owned, nationally recognised microchip databases. So those are the databases that, with the exception of Pet Cloud, being Queensland only, they're the ones that most vets across the country are going to look at if your pet goes missing. The exception to this is two state-run microchip registries, one being in New South Wales, the other being in South Australia. So New South Wales Animal Registry, any animals originally microchipped in New South Wales are going to be listed on that registry, which is only accessible to vets and council workers in New South Wales. And the other being Dogs and Cats Online, which is a South Australian animal registry, and again only accessible to those in South Australia. So if you suspect that your animal originally came from New South Wales or South Australia and was microchipped there, there is a good chance that if you're living elsewhere now, that microchip that your animal has, even if you've provided that number to council and registered with council, is largely useless outside of your very specific council area. When rangers come and collect a stray, they can check the microchip on your pet and check their own database for that council area, but that is all they can check. Outside of that, it's the nationally recognised databases that they're going to be looking at. So the first thing you need to know is your pet's microchip. That might be listed on a desexing certificate, a vaccination certificate, some paperwork you got when you first brought your pet home. It's a 15-digit number. It might be on a sticker with a barcode on it. Look for that. That's the first thing you'll need. The next thing you want to do is head to a website called petadress.com.au, and you can pop that microchip number in that website and find out which registry your animal is listed under. It will not show the New South Wales Animal Registry, and it will not show Dogs and Cats Online. It will only show you if your animal is registered under one of those privately run, nationally recognised animal registries. All right. So either if it's not showing up anything and it says your pet's not listed anywhere, it's either an issue where the microchip was never listed in the first place, and that might be a matter as simple as the paperwork never got sent off, or a data entry issue, or something's gone wrong somewhere, or the pet was originally microchipped in one of those two states. The one exception to that being if you have a greyhound and you're in Victoria, there's a special registry just for ex-racing greyhounds, and that is accessible to those within the greyhound industry, and for whatever reason they are completely separate to everything else. And you might want to think about, if you've got a greyhound, getting your pet onto one of those national databases that's much more readily accessible online by vets and council workers and rangers and so forth. So this process is essentially check the microchip number, check which registry the animal's listed under, and have someone look up that registry for you to find out what the details attached to that microchip actually are. Because I can tell you now, I reckon 30 to 40% of the time there's incorrect information, like a wrong phone number, which is going to be a big problem, not going to be able to get your pet back if you can't be contacted, or there's incorrect ownership details, so that pet's still listed under a breeder or under a shelter or wherever the animal came from a previous owner, because transfer paperwork never got sent off or never got completed. These are really, really, really common problems, and if either of those situations is the case and that animal is listed under someone different, you need to get onto that registry and do a transfer of ownership. There is a process that it can all be done online now for a lot of the registries, which makes it really simple. You just list your pet. If it's already listed with that database, you'll get a little prompt to ask you, is this your pet, with some pet details usually, and it'll say, do you wish to transfer this pet? You say yes, and that registry will then get in contact with the previous owner and give them an opportunity to contest that change. If they don't, a period of time will lapse and that will all automatically get shifted over for you. If you're not sure how to go about that process, there is a paper form that can be filled out, and transfer of ownership can happen that way as well. It does take a little bit longer because there's a bit of data entry to happen if you do it that way. It is better to do it online if you can. The issue with pets not being listed on a nationally recognised database is, as I said before, you may not be able to be contacted or get your pet back unless someone knows to check that New South Wales or South Australian Animal Registry and you're not within those states. But typically speaking, no vets, shelter workers, council workers have access to those registries unless they're in that state. So your animal will be deemed to have no information on their microchip. So if you're not in either of those states, really what you've got to do is get in contact with one of those registries, find out, is your pet listed on that registry, and have them removed from the registry so that you can list them then with a nationally recognised database that can be accessed everywhere else in Australia. This video is been prompted by a story that I heard a little while ago from someone that I know. Pretty much everything that could go wrong did go wrong. They took a trip, they took their pet, they went up to New South Wales from Victoria. The pet went walkabout, eventually got picked up by someone. Little old lady didn't want to take it to the clinic because she didn't want the animal to get put down and she was worried about what might happen if she did. Eventually a friend convinced her to do so. She took the animal to the clinic. It was scanned, not under New South Wales Animal Registry, of course, because the animal's from Victoria, and then went into a shelter system. A little while later, someone at the rescue organisation that worked with the shelter system checked the national registries through pet address, found that the animal was listed with Central Animal Records, and got in there, found out the owner details, contacted them, but unfortunately the owner was listed still as the breeder, and the breeder had since moved overseas and did not have any records of any of the new owners. So everything that could go wrong did go wrong. It's not an uncommon story. Thankfully, these people were able to find their pet by scouring the internet, and they just randomly happened to stumble across a Facebook post from the rescue organisation advertising that pet for adoption, and they had to get up there and prove that they were in fact the owners and to be able to get their pet back. So really, really tricky situation. Had that animal been rehomed, they may not have been able to get their pet back. It would have been very, very difficult for them to be able to get their pet back after that, because those organisations and registries are not allowed to give out personal information, and if those new owners decided they wanted to keep that pet, they very well probably could have. So really, really important. If all of this sounds quite convoluted and confusing, and you're feeling like, why are there so many registries, and why are there state government run registries and then there's private registries everywhere else, and why are there so many? Shouldn't it just be council doing all of this? Well, yeah, you're not wrong. This is a very confusing and convoluted system that we have, and I, for one, don't think it's a good one. I would dearly love to see all of Australia have one microchip registry that, probably should be government run, so that council can be connected to it, so that when an animal gets picked up by a ranger, they have access to that full network. That would be ideal. I don't think that change is coming anytime soon, but hey, if any of you out there are lobbying the government or have any involvement in any of this, I'd love to hear from you, and I would love to get involved, because I do think change needs to be made. Part of where everything goes wrong, though, is in that transfer of ownership from a previous owner to a new one, and whether that is a breeder or someone else selling an animal or rehoming an animal. When you go to pick up a new pet, it is very likely that you are going to be inundated with a lot of information about pet care, vaccinations, parasite control, all the things that you're trying to remember, and then someone hands you a piece of paper, tells you to sign it and send it off. You sign it, you put it in the folder with everything else, and for the most part, I think this is where it goes wrong. It doesn't get sent, and that animal remains under the ownership on that microchip of that breeder or the shelter or the previous owner, and things just don't happen as they should do. I truly think that it should be up to the person rehoming or selling that pet to make sure that that transfer actually happens. It's such an easy process, guys. It's so simple. You can do it all online. You just get in there, log in, and click the button transfer pet, and it'll all be entered in online. You can list the new owner's details while you're there with them. They can even do it themselves, and it'll pretty well happen instantly in that case, and you won't have to wait for that contest period to be done before that transfer happens. So if you are a breeder or someone that rehomes animals, please, please, please listen to this message and don't rely on owners to do it for you. You won't be seeing the amount of animals that I am seeing that have incorrect details on their microchips. And likewise, if you are a breeder or a shelter, or you're running some sort of rescue organisation, if you're getting emails asking if an animal's owners are still correct, then you know, if that is no longer your pet, that that microchip never got updated into the new owner's details. So please go back, have a look, see if you've still got the details of that owner that took ownership of that pet with that microchip, and get in contact with them and let them know, because they probably have absolutely no idea that there's anything actually wrong. If any of you out there are feeling very confused by this, don't fear. Get in contact with your regular vet. They'll be able to do these checks for you and put your mind at rest, or give you some guidance on how to go about getting things changed, whether that's contact details or a change of ownership, or even just listing the pet. It might be a matter of having to take the pet in if you don't know the microchip number and you don't know any other details about your pet, just to have them scanned by the vet, and maybe even need a certificate be filled out by the vet that says that yes, that microchip belongs to that pet, and yes, you are the owner, because that will help you to then list that pet if they have not been otherwise listed anywhere else. There is one other complicating factor to all of this in Victoria, and that is source numbers. Every breeder and shelter that sells or rehomes animals will likely have a source number to say who they are and how many animals are actually going out to new owners. And this is an incentive to try to prevent things like puppy farms and unauthorised breeding from going on. And that can be a tricky thing to find out if you have a pet and you don't know where it came from anymore, to get them listed onto a database if they're not already listed on any. these registries do by law need a source number to list that pet onto a registry. So don't fret if you don't know. There are ways around this. The best thing to do is get into contact with the registry you're wanting to list your pet under, and ask them for some guidance. Often it's just a simple matter of filling out a statutory declaration to say that you've tried everything to find where this animal came from and there just doesn't seem to be a source number to list. So that's pretty much it from me in a nutshell. I hope this all makes sense. I'll put some links down below to that pet address and some of those registries to check. Oftentimes you can log in even if you don't think you've got a login already. Sign up if you think you know where your microchip might be listed, because if you use that same email address that you originally listed that pet with, it should all just be connected up and you'll be able to see your pet listed under your name and check for yourself what details are listed under your pet, and you'll be able to update addresses if you've moved house, or update phone numbers if you've changed phone numbers, or even take away secondary contacts that might be on there. Maybe it's an ex-partner you don't want on there anymore. This sort of thing happens all the time. So do those checks, please. Everybody, don't just assume because you've done a council registration that it means that your microchip details are up to date. Get online, do the checks, and let us know if you have any dramas with all of that. My website is drlaurenmobilevet.com.au, or one word. Get in touch with me if all else fails. If you don't have a regular vet and you're needing someone to just give you a little bit of guidance about all this, we're here to help. We really do just want to make sure that animals are able to get back home where they should be when they go missing, because it just happens too much. 30% of pets with incorrect details, the system is broken for that to be happening, and I hope that we can find a way to change things sometime soon. But in the meantime, it's up to all of you guys to make sure that everything's all updated and all correct. Thanks.